Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. I've been here pretty much weathered through all of these administrations and executives, my life getting worse, each one that enters the arena. This is the pattern where they have me, like a witness to a crime that just seems to be getting worse as the years drag on. Tonight, they reminded me of a past hopeful that he was going to be able to pull out a win, President Bush. And apparently there's some animosity in the world against him. I couldn't imagine why. They never said anything went wrong during his presidency. They didn't make an announcement, like a peer review after the president leaves the White House. They didn't get on the loudspeaker and say, "Hello, American people, we just want to let you know we did the peer review for the president, and here's how he did for you American people, and this is what you have to look forward to in the future." Never happened. But what I did notice tonight, there's a couple of things, is they have him on the news this evening that there was some unhappy patron somewhere in the world. But they caught the bad guy. That's a good thing.
Meanwhile, we are following another breaking news story, and an Iraqi citizen living in Ohio has now been charged with plotting to assassinate former President George W. Bush. 52-year-old Shahab Ahmed Shahab was arrested by the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force this morning. He allegedly wanted to murder the former president in retaliation for the 2003 invasion of Iraq. He's also charged with trying to smuggle other Iraqi citizens into the U.S. to help with the plot. The suspect allegedly traveled to Dallas back in February to conduct surveillance locations associated with the former president.
To Long Island.
That is frightening. Then I was looking, and I'm like, all right, so he was the lead into, now we're in fourth decade of my life. So now we're century 20, decade 2, year 2. And this week there was a mention about a shortage in baby formula. Now, across this line, there's been a couple of mentions that hit the New York airwaves. Don't know why. One is about something called an Abbott lab. Never heard of them. Then it goes to, I just found out tonight there was some breaking news. There's a governor in Texas, President Bush's area, or so I thought they put the two of them together. And the governor's name is Abbott. I had no idea. First time I'm hearing about him. And then there's this mention of this Abbott elementary school, which the storyline is really, really interesting how they just put all this together. And then we go back to a headline today, 2 minutes after this President Bush announcement of some unhappy customer somewhere in the world with his services. They then mention something local about the Bronx with something called an RPT, which I had never heard of, which they reference something called a gang, which again, I've heard the word, just have no idea what the driving force behind that momentum is in frightening realities. But they showed some pretty fearful stuff on the news, along with the rest of the fear-mongering that they do during the week. So that's peer review from New York, a couple of decades after someone got out of office. I'm just saying, like, for the up ahead, like, if we're doing, like, civilizations in advance, what happened in New York and who was responsible, because there's some issues. Let me grab that Abbott baby formula. So Eyewitness News at noon on 5/23 was the last time I heard about Abbott specifically. And this is what I heard.
With a knife. Nothing else matters. The world stops until you find that formula.
Here in New York City, the mayor declaring a state of emergency to prevent price gouging. President Biden announcing the first 2 Defense Production Act authorizations aimed at increasing domestic supply, including allowing key formula maker Abbott Nutrition to receive priority orders of raw materials. Abbott, which the New York Times says controls nearly half of the domestic formula supply, had to shut down a plant in February due to possible contamination. The White House also announcing another shipment of formula will arrive at Dulles Airport later this week. Tony Yates.
Now, that's the first mention of Abbott this week. Then on David Muir this evening, which is the 24th, Tuesday 24th, they mention him at Aerospace Dimension 04.55. And this is what this sounds like.
18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher.
Now, that's what's come in and what this poor man has inherited in his state of chaos, while New York is not faring much better. But again, we have our own versions of whatever's going on there, in really frightening, I don't even know what to call them. But now, the interesting thing is TV producer land put up something with the Abbott name, since it seems to be a threshold, like, thematic in the system at the moment. So I'm going to go on to demand and grab that real quick. So now, the words that they use in this Abbott Elementary, it says, a group of dedicated, passionate teachers and a slightly tone-deaf principal find themselves thrown together in a Philadelphia public school where, despite the odds stacked against them, they are determined to help their students succeed in life. Though these incredible public servants may be outnumbered and underfunded, they love what they do. I bet they do. And I bet that's not exactly 100% the truth either. Here's what the cast looks like. And now that leads me to real world New York with this mention of something called a gang. Because I've seen it referenced in movies, but it's like one of these sliding, drifting theoreticals. Because when they show like the real participants, I'm like, that's not what was in the movies. Like, that's not what was in Gangs in New York. Like, that looked tame in the movies. Alright, so at 18.18 is when they mentioned this on Channel 7.
And 30 last night. A gang takedown in the Bronx. The suspects accused of numerous shootings are bragging about the violence in what's called drill rap. Eyewitness News reporter Marcus.
I've never heard of whatever this drill rap is. That's not a... That might be their version of street, but that hasn't hit my life frame. Like, I haven't heard that from another human ever. This is the first time I've heard the reference.
Marcus Solis with that story.
They're the backdrop in music videos that have garnered tens of millions of views on YouTube. The River Park Towers apartment complex in Highbridge.
Chaotic. there's just a group of them all the time, and the music blasting, and everybody's jumping around. It's crazy.
But police say the lyrics to these drill rap songs were used to incite violence, specifically the shooting of rivals. Today, the Bronx District Attorney and NYPD announced the arrest of 23 members of RPT, a Bloods-affiliated gang linked to over a half dozen shootings. The violence bragged about on social media. Even a pigeon was beaten to death during a live stream when a target number of viewers was reached.
This gang would shoot at their ops in the vicinity of schools, MTA buses, even in close proximity to Times Square. No regard for anyone in the area.
This is the second gang takedown in the Bronx in the last 6 weeks, centered around drill rap. The DA is now planning a summit with aspiring rappers, record companies, and radio stations.
Let's all sit down and develop solutions so that we could prevent any further violence.
What I don't get is why, with like there being some presidents that looked like maybe like an assistant somewhere in the system, you didn't have like a job opportunity that was open that like maybe you could send a messenger and go, here kid, here's a bone. I mean, like, we got big like things going on in the world of superheroes, like we gotta focus on. I mean, like, because I see this and I'm like, where did they get funding for their cars, for all that cash they display, for all the busy work they do and whatever they are and do in the world, in the cities? I'm just like controlling some form of underground, I don't really know. I'm just curious at like the echelon of like good girls want to stay good, like just something to make enough money, like so one doesn't have to live in this scary world. I mean, like, not one of the administrative presidents could plan for my future inside all this chaos. I mean, really? Because I don't really see getting a paycheck and being able to, like, afford children. It didn't happen. It's been a problem, and I see other problems growing even bigger. But I'm just curious where the hell they get all this green money from when it's Washington green and cream linen. I mean, why are they looking fully funded? And I can't even get a job with a paycheck in a legitimate operation.
Police say taking down the alphas of the gang should lead to an immediate drop in crime in the area. The challenge is to intervene with youth before the next generation steps in to fill the leadership void. In Highbridge, Marcus Solis, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Well, it is an extra busy.
And now, had I gotten, like, anywhere in the family business of, like, the family estate side, it might have sounded like this. It's 6 p.m., last minute of the 6 p.m. broadcast, there's a message from a senator named Chris Murphy. It's at aerospace dimensional time that I have on my machine of 28.50. And when, like, I look up at the TV or sit here trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do with being in this biologically attacked state and not having a place or a stipend or commissary to fall back on. Like, how am I supposed to make it between here? I mean, I've gotten to 4 decades of really getting no handouts at all. How am I going to make it for the next whatever?
Time ago, on the Senate floor.
There are 14 kids dead in an elementary school in Texas right now. What are we doing? What are we doing? Our kids are living in fear every single time they set foot in the classroom because they think they're going to be next. What are we doing? Why do you spend all this time running for the United States Senate? Why do you go through all the hassle of getting this job of putting yourself in a position of authority. If your answer is that as this slaughter increases, as our kids run for their lives, we do nothing, what are we doing?
Strong words from Senator.
I don't know. I don't know what a senator does. I don't know how one becomes a senator. I don't know what kind of schooling it entails. I don't know what the job looks like. I don't know what their responsibility is. I don't even know, like, do they spend time in Washington? Are they spending time at home? Like, none of this has been laid out. None of this has been explained in the public schools growing up. I mean, I'm here avidly defending that there's some framework and they're working within the framework, but then I'm looking in other places and I'm like, So it's like, if I was there, I'd be the one that would be clapping for him at the end of that. But again, I don't even know where that takes place. I'm assuming it's Washington, D.C., but can I confirm that? No. Never been invited, never looked, like, never even spoke about what that does. That's what's really frightening, because there are so many others from the not us that are now lobbying inside the us that have taken my seat, my voice, and my ability to even hand raise and go, excuse me, I know that you're planning for something special because it's, what else would you be here for? But I think something might have been overlooked. Because I'm here in New York, and it looks like somebody forgot to plan for my life and my children's appearance. It seems like there's some really, like, scary things going on in this area. Wasn't sure if anybody had noticed. Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.